All right, I think we're live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. I hope you're all having a great weekend here. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm happy to be back on a Sunday live stream here as opposed to the Saturday ones we've been doing recently. But I was going to do this in the last live stream. We were talking about how I did a poll about do you prefer Saturday or Sunday live streams, and I was polling everyone on a Saturday, and it was pretty much 50-50 split between Saturday and Sunday. So I'm going to do another poll here for consistency and see what people think about the Sunday live streams versus Saturday. So going to type this up here really quick, and then we will get on with the live stream here. Trying to be scientific about this. All right. And I'm just going to leave this poll up the entire live stream here, and we will see if the results are the same as they were last time. All right, so looks like Saturday's having an early pull ahead here. We'll see. Anyway, thank you all so much for joining in. Like all the other usual live streams, are going to go for about 2 hours. I have priority answering to anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames. They always get priority answering. And if you'd like priority answering as well, there's always a join button here in the description of the video, as well as I think there's a button actually on the video itself. You can click there to join in and get that priority answering as well. But anyway, so I see we have Mike's Car Info, Brian, Jordan, Truck and Car Guy, Tony, Kyle, The Good Stick, Zachary, Raphael, Luke, Ace, Nick, Cam Jam, Linda. Thanks so much for joining in. Yes, so Linda says clean shaven this week. Yeah, I only got 1 day of stubble here today, so I had to clean myself up for a little birthday party here this past weekend. So I'm rare, although this is self-indulgent, but I feel like the more that I've been having facial hair, the more that I kind of miss it now. And I'm like, I don't know if I love being clean shaven anymore. It's kind of interesting. But anyway, moving on to car stuff here. Let me see. So Mike's Car Info says, hopefully you'll get a chance to drive a BMW i5 M60. It is an impressive vehicle, and I'd love to see you review one. I'd love to review any of the new 5 Series. Yeah, just BMW still won't work with me. I should probably pester them. It's been a little while since I've tried asking for press cars and stuff, but previously they've not been into doing any kind of press cars or even press trips for me. So, but yeah, I'd love to for sure, because I've been very impressed with BMW products in the past, even though I don't love the way many of them look these days. They seem like they're usually pretty good cars. And Jordan says, don't stop the weekly updates. I appreciate that, Jordan, but we'll see, because this past week was another 5,000 view weekly update. It's like half of what they used to get, and I don't know why it dropped so suddenly. I think a lot of people are just over all the EV news, and it's like I have to report on what's coming next, and EVs are what's coming next for most stuff. I mean, there's plug-in hybrids and stuff as well, but people just seem like they're losing interest. So I don't know. The weekly updates are living on borrowed time, to be totally honest. I really can't justify all the work that goes into them for 5,000 views. So we will see. But yeah, I may end up actually getting rid of the weekly updates sooner rather than later if they continue to just go nowhere. But let me see. Tony says, hi all, I'm in New York, and what a perfect day to spend a few hours detailing the Mustang today. My boys even joined in. I hope everyone's doing well. That's awesome. Sounds like a great way to spend a Sunday here, Tony. And yes, a beautiful day here as well. A little cold though in Pittsburgh, so it wasn't the best day for being outside, but at least it was sunny and clear, and it was great. So let me see. Luke says something interesting. I've noticed heated seats in cars that have toggle buttons like Subarus don't get as hot as cars that have just a single button that you hit multiple times to turn it on or off. Interesting. Yeah, everyone does heated seats and heated steering wheels, all that kind of stuff differently. And it's interesting how, I'll be in one car and like I have 2 press cars this week. I have a Kia EV9 and a Honda Ridgeline. And the EV9 is fine. It has a 2-stage thing actually for the heated steering wheel, which isn't super common to have multiple adjustments for the wheel heat, but that's really nice to have. But even the hottest setting doesn't get scalding hot. But man, the Ridgeline, the heated steering wheel on that, which is I think a new addition here for the Trail Sport, which is appreciated. But man, they did not test the heated steering wheel. You can't tell me they tested it and were like, yeah, this is good, because it gets scalding hot, maybe a minute and a half into being on. Like it is, yeah, like you would think that like the safety nannies would be like, hey, like this is too hot, let's dial this back a little bit so we're not like incinerating the driver's hands and also the leather on the steering wheel. It's like just insane. Again, I don't know how that stuff gets through quality control, but anyway, yeah, it's funny. Yeah, everyone does it differently and has different settings and different strengths. Some are super weak, some only do it at like the 9 and 3 grip, and not the whole wheel. It's everyone does it differently. It's very interesting. And let me see. Where was I? So Zachary says bearded music to my ears, Matt. Yeah, we will see. I know a few people also said they prefer the bearded look, so maybe it's something I got to look into more. Linda said, I saw the new 2024 mid-engine Corvette in person today. Very nice. Yeah, I'm hoping to have the E-Ray here to test at some point in the next few months. And yeah, C8s are great, and they're fairly common around here now. People have really bought as many of them as they said they would, because everyone was freaking out when those, initially came out back in 2020 or whatever, and it was 60 grand, and everyone was like, why would you buy anything else? And a lot of people actually followed through on that. At least around here, there's a lot of C8 Corvettes, and it's good to see. Raphael says, I understand if you need to stop them, but the weekly update is what I look forward to on most Fridays. I look forward to most on Fridays. I know it's just weird disconnect, because it's just like, I know there's so many people, I guess so many is a relative term now, but there's a lot of people that really do like enjoy it so much. And that's what would be so sad about getting rid of the weekly updates, is I know there's so many people that enjoy it so much. I don't mind doing them. I like doing them. I like staying up to date on the car news and, giving my 2 cents every once in a while where I can do that and not be super annoying. I mean, it's something I enjoy doing, and I don't know. Whether I just do like a separate channel and do a new channel and just give that as a last ditch effort for those, and otherwise just, write them off or what. Because it's just strange. They've dropped really quickly in the past couple of months here. And now it's like half the views, like overnight. It's really strange. But anyway, Cam Jam says, saw a video on drag times, Lucid Sapphire versus Model S Plaid. Model S got dropped. Lucid ran an 8.9 quarter mile out of the box. Nice. Yeah, the Sapphire seems like it is no joke. I mean, not like a Plaid is slow either, but I haven't seen that video, so that's cool. Thanks for the heads up there on that. And Luke says, for example, my 07 Accord has 2 level heated seats. The hottest setting doesn't really get that hot, but my Acura TLX has 3 levels, and it gets scalding hot. Interesting. Yeah, it's all over the place. It really is. Good Stick says, in my opinion, cars of the 2000s are the best. Back when cars had big engines and the right amount of tech. I was in elementary school from 2007 to 2013. Great time to be a kid. Yeah, that is a fun time for sure. And I think a lot of it is also, like I'm sentimental of like stuff from the 2000s as well, because I was, a kid, by 2007, I was, basically, almost in college, but, I have a huge affinity for all the sport compact stuff from the early 2000s, the early Fast and Furious kind of stuff, has always been super cool to me. So I think there's some sentimental stuff going on there as well, because, the older generations say the same thing about having, no tech and, big engines and, when cars are real cars. And, I mean, there's always, I think it's a generational thing. We always love, the stuff from our childhood, I think in a lot of ways, or just from the past. Anything from the past gets romanticized, sooner or later, even if it wasn't the best thing ever. And I mean, it's very, it's very interesting how, people look back on some of that stuff. And you look at like Mustangs from the time, everyone was so excited, 2006, 2007, the Mustang came back, V8 with 300 horsepower. Imagine making that announcement today and people be like, what, 300 horsepower out of a V8? That's super weak. But it was very exciting back then, and people are excited about that even to this day, as far as, the sentimental nature of like, those were awesome. But then it's like, we've had such these huge advancements with, the muscle car wars in the past 10 years. And I really feel like the golden age of muscle really was the 2010s, to be totally honest. And, we will see how things evolve with electric stuff. But as far as gas stuff goes, I think that, it was really fun. And I'm really grateful that, not only was I alive and around to enjoy these times, but I was able to, spend a lot of time with a lot of these awesome cars. And I think, in my opinion, looking back in 50 years, it's going to be like, man, the 2010s were wild as far as, muscle cars, kind of the same way everyone, waxes nostalgic from prior generations about, stuff again from the 60s and early 70s. So it's just funny how things change, but a lot of the mentalities kind of stay the same, and it's fun. And Kyle says, I love the concepts of the late 90s and early 2000s. I know it's really they have some of the best stuff. I mean, especially like Dodge and Chrysler, they had so many wild concepts that I had Hot Wheels cars of all of them and stuff back then, just so many cool things. Tony says, my TLX heated seats get super hot as well. Even better, the ventilated seats get nice and cold. That's nice, and that's actually more rare, especially in even like modern cars these days. It seems like you see some do a better job than others. Some are like really almost non-existent with the cooling, and others like actually get you nice and cold. But I feel like the nice cold ones are like some of the most rare. Usually it's, you don't have a ton of cooling, honestly. And Luke says, last week with the Camry video, I put your video first on my watch later list. I want your channel to stay. I appreciate that, Luke. The support means a lot. Yeah, it's that Camry video surprisingly is doing better than the average video for me, which is good to see. I think it again just goes back to a relatable car that they're going to build hundreds of thousands of. So it's not like it's going to be this rare, super limited thing. It's attainable. It's really well done. If you watch my video, you already know my thoughts on it. But it's just yeah, I think a really well done car, and I'm glad to see that the video is resonating as well. And Raphael, thank you so much for the super chat. I see there's now a new like button, I think, for that. Let me see. I'm trying out. There's some new. Okay, yeah, there's it looks like there's a like thing, but it's not letting me click it. Let me see. Oh, I can heart it. There we go. Thank you, Raphael, for the super chat. He says, YouTube is flooded with the new Camry. I really love the new interior, but I don't think I can trade my V6 TRD for a hybrid 4-cylinder and CVT. And that's totally fair. I mean, it's the V6 TRDs are the very small minority. I mean, I think Toyota said the take rate for the V6 was 7%. Here towards the end, or for the entire generation of Camry in general, and so I can understand it. But I mean, yeah, obviously it's 300 horsepower or whatever with the V6. The hybrid 4-cylinder is punchy, and I would argue, whenever you are in the half throttle kind of stuff or you're at lower speeds, you're going to have more response out of the hybrid 4-cylinder because you get that instant electric jolt. But the top end is all, the TRD is going to still pull away, obviously, and be the faster vehicle. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, do they do a higher horsepower Camry? Because again, the numbers show that people don't want to pay for that. So I think, for the average Camry experience, those people are all going to get a really nice upgrade. I think also, I think this is part of why Crown was justified for the States here, because I feel like anyone is like, wow, I want a Camry, but I want more power. You have the Crown, which has the hybrid max thing with 360 horsepower. I reviewed one. I mean, it's not really an enthusiast vehicle per se, but, it's if you want a, higher power sedan, I think that's kind of, what Toyota would recommend to you these days. And I'm hoping that, I think there was rumors of a GR Crown kind of thing. And there's rumors of, obviously there's been rumors about GR Camrys and stuff too. We'll see what they do, but I'm hoping there's some kind of performance thing. I mean, because the TRD version, the regular V6, wasn't super hot, but I think that 7% included TRD, but at least around here, I see a bunch of TRDs. So I would hope that they're going to try and do some kind of, sportier version of the Camry, but I have no clue. They didn't hint at anything at the event or anything. So I have no idea if that's something that's ever going to happen, but, yeah, I'd love to see a sportier Camry for sure. And let me see. Linda says, if you don't get enough views on the weekly updates to justify the time, I'm okay with you dropping them. I appreciate the support, Linda. Yeah, it's we'll just have to see. But Luke says, we own the past, but the past disowns us. Well put. And Zachary said, I had that magazine with the red 05 Mustang and the exciting 300 horsepower. Yeah, it was it was just fun, all the retro stuff that was coming back back then, it was so cool. They were all so bold with all those designs, and it's a huge break from what they'd done in the past. And Trunk Car Guy says, heated seats, I'm too old school for that. That's okay. You know, it's one of those things. I think with a lot of these luxury features, if you don't know what you're missing, then you're better off never experiencing it, because then it's really hard to go back. So if you're like, not curious about that, or you have no need for that, then yeah, stay away. Same thing with heated steering wheels. People are like, oh, what do you need a heated steering wheel for? Like wear gloves or whatever. But if you experience it on a cold day, you'll never want to go back. And then you have to get higher trims and pay extra, and then you're spoiled and you can never have a base model vehicle. Otherwise you're missing all these things that you once had. So I think that going up the options ladder can be a slippery slope if you haven't done that before. And Luke says horsepower tax, 300 horsepower is the new 200. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some of that as far as the muscle stuff. It's crazy how everything has gotten so much faster. Even your average family sedan or family SUV, is just so punchy these days. Cam Jam says, I think for the new Camry, the SE with the all-wheel drive is the best all-around package. Yeah, I mean, I think that, the tech is so good in base model Toyotas these days that I agree. I don't think you need to go up to some super high trim. An 8-inch screen is totally sufficient. You get, nice digital gauges still as standard. And it's not even just Toyota. I mean, like Hyundai does a really good job with their base models now and stuff too. I mean, but yeah, with Camry, if it were my money, the XSE is cool. I love the two-tone thing. I love the red interior. I love, the panoramic roof and stuff is nice. But if you're watching your money, I mean, that SE that I was driving around for a while there was totally fine. Outside of, I just really wish they perforated the seats, because the seat back was getting kind of sweaty. But other than that, it's great. And let me see. Zachary says, I think Camry video has more than double the Land Cruiser video, which is surprising. Yeah, it's like triple. Land Cruiser sitting around 5,000 views for me, and it's like 15 or over 15 now for Camry, and still cruising. So that's YouTube. It's you never know. I for sure would have thought Land Cruiser was more exciting, but maybe it's just the pricing already came out for those, and the fact that I think it's really. People are so much more price sensitive now than they were before, and I don't blame them. I mean, wages aren't rising and keeping up with, inflation and all that kind of stuff. People are pinched for money more than ever before. So I totally get it. And maybe it's just that people are put off by Land Cruiser pricing ahead of time. So there's just, dead on arrival for those. I don't know, at least as far as the videos goes. But Camry, yeah, I think just great pricing, great packaging. And really well done. So I'm guessing that's part of why. But yeah, I mean, on my channel, I'm not always, I don't get into the trucks too much, but I mean, recently, like Ram did well. Tacoma stuff's done pretty decent for me. So I was, cautiously optimistic that Land Cruiser would actually be okay. But that's the nice thing about that Toyota event, was we had 4 things plus 4Runner to film there. So it's, it was a really good use of time, even if they don't all turn into home runs. It's going to be a lot of content for, a few days there. So I'm really happy they bundled them all together like that. And JDL, thank you so much for the very generous super chat. I really appreciate that. It says, thanks for your good work. Keep it up. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Give that one a heart here, of course, as well. And yeah, thank you so much, JDL, for the support. And let me see. Tony says, I wouldn't get rid of the TRD either. I tried to get one back in 21, but couldn't get one at all. I do love my TLX. TLXs are great too, for sure. But yeah, TRD is a really fun vehicle. The Good Stick says, I recently rode in a 99 Camry. It feels like a budget Lexus. The car was not fast at all, but it's very comfortable. A lot of modern cars lost comfort in the pursuit of sportiness. I think there certainly was some of that for a while, but I think that we're coming back around to comfort being a priority for a lot of companies. And, I can see why. These days, I feel like there's less of a demand for sporty stuff than there was in the past. I don't know. I just feel like a lot of people are just, the world is so chaotic and stuff that you don't need any more stimulation. And a lot of people are just like, I just want something comfortable that coddles me in luxury, and that's it. And I can, again, totally understand that. So I feel like, the more and more that I'm in new cars, and a lot of these new cars too, with the generations, it used to be that you had to have this choice of, is it going to be stiff and sporty, or is it going to be soft and boaty? And you don't have to really make that compromise anymore. Like a lot of these new platforms are so stiff with the torsional rigidity that they can loosen up, the dampers and the springs and make those softer while still giving you really good handling because of that extra built-in stiffness. And so it's allowed a lot of these vehicles to really have, no sacrifices and still have great rides. The new Civic Type R rides really nice. All these cars that you would think, well, this is a track ready car, it's going to ride like garbage, and it doesn't. And it's kind of surprising. It's just modern engineering doing its thing of just advancing, every few years. And so I think that we're really able to have more of the best of both worlds, which we weren't able to, have before. And Triton Car Guy says it's only a matter of time until rental fleets are flooded with them. Yeah, possibly. I mean, I'm telling you what, though, people are going to be so impressed in the rental fleet to get a hybrid as standard and then be getting 50 miles per gallon. It's going to be great for rental fleets, great for renters, great for anyone who gets into a Camry there. Raphael says, it sounds like it's the sound that I really love about the TRD. Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, that's great too. And that's something obviously you're never going to replace, with any kind of four-cylinder compared to the V6. So, I mean, yeah, I'd say, if that's your biggest thing you love about it, then yeah, just keep it and run it into the ground. We know it's going to last forever. So you can hang on to that and, as long as you possibly can. Zachary says a GR Crown is confusing. Yeah, but in Japan, they have the whole lineup, and like there are some sporty ones. Like there's the GR Crown, or it's a Crown Sport that's like kind of like a hot hatch almost, and is really cool. I mean, then there's like the more luxurious Crowns that are more, customary, traditional kind of Crown things when you think about that, for anyone who's, familiar with past Crowns. But it's just, Toyota being Toyota. They're just making everything awesome and exciting. And so GR Crown, I mean, who knows if that's actually going to happen, but wouldn't surprise me these days, which is, really awesome of Toyota, in my opinion. Cam Jam says, found out today while jet ski shopping, a stock Yamaha performance ski can do 5 to 60 mile per hour time of 3.8 seconds. I don't think I could even hold on. Nice. Yeah, I love jet skiing. I did it a long time ago back when I was a teenager, and I just did it one time. I just rented one for an afternoon. But I mean, yeah, they are fast. I mean, I remember just even on the water there, I just, held on for dear life. I mean, that sucker got up like 70 miles an hour, just zipping across the lake. And it was, they're fast. Yeah, they're no joke. And I actually kind of like jet skis to me are like a somewhat safer motorcycle in some ways. I'm sure they have their own pitfalls and dangerous things, but at least you don't have to worry about crazy people texting while driving and running into you and stuff. I feel like jet skis kind of give you the motorcycle experience in a safer environment, possibly. So if I ever had the luxury of having toys like that and room for them and living in a place where I actually would enjoy jet skiing on a regular basis, like that would be the one water sport thing I think I'd get into, as a baby step before getting a boat and all the headaches that go along with that. But yeah, jet skis are pretty cool in my book. Six Lick says, hey Matt, hope you had a great week. What would you say is the most groundbreaking automotive technology introduced in the last decade? That's the thinker. I don't know, the most groundbreaking thing. I think this is probably a kind of a cop-out answer, but I'd say probably the electric vehicle. And I'm not saying that as like, trying to make people groan. I'm just saying like, in the past 10 years, what is, you look at, 50, 100 years back, what are the groundbreaking things? The introduction of, the various evolutions of the 8 engines that, in the 50s had these massive jumps in power and, the jumps in efficiency. You could say like the Prius was pretty groundbreaking for its time, introducing hybrids to the world. And, there's groundbreaking things like that. But I feel like, EVs, even though they're older than the past decade, that's when they really kind of became compelling and interesting and exciting. They were obviously before that just kind of like nerdy science experiments. And now, Tesla is, one of the few things I will give them credit for is they made the electric car cool. And that was something that no one else had been able to do before that. And so, I really think, when you look at the trajectory of what happened in the 2010s and how that has affected what's coming down the road and what's happening, you obviously had Hellcats and things like that, over the past decade, but those are all going away. That was a passing fad that, was fun and, all that. And obviously there's other things that are, causing that to end, but it's, when you look at a thing that was introduced back in the past decade that is going to have the biggest, effect on everything going forward. It's the electric car, I think. So, um, and we will see that continue to have these groundbreaking advancements with, more advanced batteries and just all those things that are, just like how we've seen how tech has evolved since the original iPhone and the smartphone came onto the scene, and just, you're going to see the same kind of thing, I think, with EVs, and that's going to be kind of the crazy thing. It's already groundbreaking and will continue to be groundbreaking, and I think accelerate even faster than a lot of people realize. So that would probably be my thing. And I hope you've been having a good week as well, Six Licks, and thanks so much. And I did also thank you for sending the email about how to do the Discord server. I did see that. It just came in, I think, yesterday. I will work on that here later this week, and hopefully by next weekend maybe have something ready to go for members there with finally having a Discord server. But thank you so much for spending the time to write all that out there, and I will be checking that. I just had a busy weekend and I haven't had a chance, but I will check that out. And thank you again for doing that. I really, really appreciate anything that can save me time and improve things on the channel here. Is just like a win-win. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And Luke says that happened with me. I used to be okay with just power locks, power windows, then climate control, then heated seats. Now adaptive cruise, it needs to stop. Yeah, and a lot of the stuff like adaptive cruise they're throwing in as standard. Then it's like, well, now I really can't go down to any kind of older car or any other car that doesn't offer it as standard. There's all those types of things. So yeah, it is a slippery slope. Like I said, again, not something that, a car reviewer should probably say, to like not buy new cars or not to, go for the options and stuff. But seriously, it's, do not, if you haven't had any experience, you're going to ruin yourself with luxuries. Zachary says, do you ever look at cars out in the wild and just see a big flaw they might have? Like, hey, there's a CX-50, the giant center stitch in the seat is really uncomfortable. I mean, sometimes there'll be something where I'm just like, yeah, like that makes no sense. There was something like that just this past weekend that I saw something. I'm like, why would they do that? But I can't remember what it was. But I mean, it's really, I mean, maybe there's just stuff that we all kind of see immediately and agree like that's a bad idea or something. But like I saw an iX drive by today, a BMW iX, and it's like the big flaw is just the front end on that thing still. But there's usually nothing glaring about a car on a first glance to me that stands out as like, wow, like that is horrible. Like, and also, like, I mean, I don't know, maybe the CX-50's not been great if you've tried it out, but like the center stitch in the seat, I don't remember feeling it, or I don't think I commented on it in the video because I mean, if it would have bothered me, I would have said something. So, I think, so one of the things is Alcantara seats, just because of my experiences with them and how hot they get. Whenever I see an Alcantara seat, especially one that isn't perforated, I'm like, nope, that's going to be a bad time. Or any kind of non-perforated seat in general. Like, again, Camry, like that, Camry SE I had, in the review video where it's like, there's no perforation and it's just straight Softex vinyl leather for your lower back. I mean, maybe everyone doesn't get, sweaty as much as I do or something. I don't know. But like you put like a hot summer day and you have a hot piece of leather on my lower back, like it's not going to be comfortable, And so why companies let that stuff fly? I just feel like perforation should just be standard. I know it's probably more expensive and stuff. And, I know it's annoying to clean because stuff can get in the little holes and all that. But like from a comfort standpoint, like, perforated seats, it's like non-negotiable. Like it's got to be perforated if you want it to be comfortable on a hot day, in my opinion. But yeah, great question, Zachary. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. But Jordan, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, why have car companies ditched partnerships with Sony sound systems? That's a good question. I'm guessing there's some kind of supplier thing behind the scenes as far as why. It really is the what do they call it? The Harman Group that just like they own basically everything now. They just took over outside of Bose. I think it's just Bose, and what else is in Harman anymore? Because I know like Bang & Olufsen's Harman now. Harman Kardon obviously is Harman. And like JBL's owned by them. Like they're all like, just Google Harman brands, and basically every stereo upgrade out there outside of Bose and a couple of others they're all Harman. They're all the same thing. I mean, they have different divisions and they tune things differently and stuff. And I'm sure there's different components and different levels and all that. It's, the high end system that's $5,000 in an Audi, is not going to be the same system you're getting in a Tacoma or something, but it's just, there's a lot of shared componentry there, and it's kind of crazy. So I don't know if Sony just got pushed out because Harman was just so gigantic with their takeover of, automotive stereos or what. But yeah, I mean, Sony makes good stuff. They're, I think a Sony stereo would be a great upgrade, and Ford put them in for a while and a couple of others, I think. But I don't know. That's a good. You always have such good questions, Jordan. I don't know. I never thought about that, but yeah, Ford dropped them for Harman as well with the B&O stuff. So I'm guessing it's just the bigger company was able to offer a better discounts, for bulk purchases, and guessing that's probably why. But I don't know. And let me see. So Trent Car Guy says, considering I live in the desert, my manual car has no AC whatsoever. I can go without heated seats. Also, it's nearly 100 degrees today. Man, that is brutal. I hope you can get AC back at some point. But yeah, I mean, at least the good thing is, cloth seats, I feel like they're also kind of making a comeback a little bit, and for good cause, because I feel like, they've always been pretty good about, having good breathability. They're lightweight, they're pretty cost effective and all that, and they're just usually cloth wears pretty well and overall is pretty good as long as it's a well done one. So I'm happy to see that a lot of companies are kind of going back to that a little bit with textiles and stuff, and even with the Camry, that's one of the things, instead of having fake carbon fiber on the dash and all these plastics, they're having fabric on there, which I think is kind of nice. And Luke says, I had a 2012 Mercedes C300 Sport. It felt so stiff and the rear tires were wider than the front, so you couldn't rotate tires. Now I like riding couches. Yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of that's also just age. At a certain point, a lot of people are just like, what, I had my fun with my rough riding sporty cars, like I'm ready to just relax now. And that's obviously totally understandable too. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of the era where, again, everything was like, okay, we got to be either sporty or you got to be, comfortable. I think everyone's kind of chasing BMW back in the 2000s and the 2010s in a lot of ways. And so you had these really sporty things, and, Mercedes was throwing out comfort for sportiness, and, it wasn't great from a luxury standpoint of a luxury sports sedan, but it was all just, chasing those titles of best handling, sports sedan and all that kind of stuff. And again, you had to make that choice back then. And Zachary's helping us out with the obligatory Toyota Shield comments from two, since two isn't here, at least so far. Hopefully he's doing well here tonight. But Good Stick says, I drive a Hyundai Venue. Seeing the GMC Hummer EV behind me is utterly terrifying. I don't blame you. I mean, unless you are in, a Cybertruck or something, I feel like basically anything else is going to be terrifying to be around a Hummer EV, and they are gigantic and they weigh so much. The weight is really, just terrifying. And I know it's not popular to talk about regulation, but I mean, when you're talking about stuff that is really heavy like that, like I feel like there's got to be a different level of licensing, once you get to a certain weight limit, and they got to put a cap on this stuff, because otherwise it's just going to keep on ballooning until we're all driving RVs. I mean, it's really what's going to, I mean, there's no end to this. There's no, I mean, we saw this in the 70s. Look at how long a two-door Cadillac got in the 70s. Whenever you let this stuff just kind of run wild, and there's no, limiter on anything, it's just like, yeah, sure, let's make a 19-foot two-door. I mean, it's cool, but like, that was kind of like the same kind of thing back then, of like this giant thing with fins and all kinds of things that could, maim people in various ways. It just, yeah, I don't blame you for that. I mean, especially like, with Teslas and a lot of these EVs that are, really heavy, it's like, you got to be careful around them, because, I wouldn't love, living with a Miata or something like that these days, because it's just like you're surrounded by huge vehicles, especially different places. I mean, like you go to like Texas or something, and every other vehicle is an F-150. Like, it'd be a tough place to have a small little sports car, But Brianna says, would you like to own a ranch in South Dakota? I mean, if you're offering, no, I mean, we really like being, where we are in Pittsburgh here. We kind of like being close to stuff. We're not like living downtown or anything. We like some, the separation of the suburbs, but, being out in the middle of nowhere, it's nice, for visiting or vacationing, things like that. But, I feel like we would just get too bored if there was just nothing around to do. So we like kind of living fairly close to a city personally. And let me see. Raphael says it's funny. I use cruise control on the motorcycle all the time, but in 4 years I've used it 3 times in the car. Interesting. Yeah, I kind of like having the control as well. I don't really use cruise control too much either. But Jordan, thank you so much for our super chat. He says a few months ago I mentioned my husband's idea of copper wheels generating electricity for EVs and hybrids. Possible in the future. I just don't know. I think others were commenting back last time you commented that copper is one, just very expensive, especially in large quantities like that. And I think the weight was probably an issue. It's not like anyone worries about weight in EVs or anything like that anyway. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I think there's always, room for new ideas and stuff. But I think a lot of times, these engineers, especially with stuff like EVs, where it was kind of like thinking outside of the box for a lot of stuff and kind of having these new opportunities to not stick to the traditional, way of doing things for a lot of stuff. I think they had that opportunity to be like, hey, let's try new things. And I'm sure, there was people looked into every alloy and metal possible to for wheels or for anything, just try and come up with better ways to save electricity, to generate electricity, things like that. But yeah, if it's something that your husband's passionate about, then he should go for it. And and who knows, could be the next innovation. Maybe someone else is missing that connection that he's made or something. So it's always worth pursuing every avenue and see where it takes you. And let me see. The Good Stick says, I saw a BMW 2 Series Grand Coupe for 50 grand, so overpriced for a front drive subcompact. Get a Honda Civic or a Toyota Corolla. Yeah, it's, I think the only thing that saves some of those types of vehicles is leasing. A lot of times the lease rates really aren't much more than like a Civic, which doesn't lease very well, things like that. So for some people, if it's going to end up being another, $50, $100 difference, maybe 150 tops. For some people that might be worth it to them just for the badge, but I agree. I think I've sat in the 2 Series Grand Coupe. I have not even driven one, and I have no desire to, but I couldn't guarantee you that the backseat in a Civic or even probably a Corolla is going to be roomier than the Grand Coupe 2 Series, so it's like, yeah, that's one of those cars that's very hard to justify. I like the A3. CLA is okay, but yeah, I think I would just, I don't go into the luxury thing too much personally. Like if it's my own money, like I'm good with a mainstream brand, especially these days. They're so nice. Yeah, I'd much rather have a Civic, over a 2 Series Grand Coupe as well. Brianna says she saw Porsche Taycan Turbo today. Nice. Yeah, they're fantastic cars. I was happy I was able to review one finally a couple months back. They're a ton of fun. Zachary says, I'm shocked Acura went away from the Panasonic ELS system on the new MDX. Me too, because the Panasonic was a great system. I was like really impressed with that, but I guess again they just got pushed out like everybody else. It's got to just be Harman's just taking over with this dynasty and saying, hey, we can give you a cheaper price for this Bang & Olufsen. And it's a prestigious brand that everyone's used to seeing in Audis and things like that, and they're like, wow, I got a Bang & Olufsen in my car, and that's going to win out over ELS, which everyone's like, what is ELS? I think it's a more niche kind of brand. So, but yeah, it's a shame because the Panasonic systems are great. Panasonic does really good stuff. Even like my main camera I use to film is a Panasonic. No one talks about Panasonic. They're not the sexy brand in tech or anything, but like they make really good stuff in my experience. And Trenton Car Guy says, I was bringing this up with my coworkers, but I find it odd that a 25 grand car has leather seats, but the same car at 50 somehow has cloth seats, no better than the ones in my wagon. Yeah, it's there's some companies that they are doing that. Like Volvo's doing like their wool seats now and stuff. They're trying to make them feel premium. But it's like this perceived luxury that comes with leather. But a lot of people who have had that luxury are like actually it's not all it's cracked up to be all the time, and they're happy to, go to a cloth or something. And Brianna's pointing out, yeah, Bowerson Wilkins is a private brand. Okay, yeah, that is one of the few outliers. Yeah, it's like them, the ELS stuff, the Sony stuff. I know like Bentley has like Name, which is much higher brand kind of stuff. And there's a few others, new ones that are coming onto the scene. Like the Ram just has the what is the name of there's that new top one that's in the Ram, and it's in something else too. And you see like the Macintosh stereos now in the Wagoneer stuff. There are some others, but Harman's just seems like they're trying to dominate. And let me see. Cam Jump says, would you go for an LE or an SE Camry? Would do LE, but can't stand the wave pattern on the seats. Gotcha. I actually thought it was kind of nice, for a base LE Camry to have, the nice extra stitching there when they could just have a plain cloth seat, and they actually jazzed it up a little bit. I was kind of impressed by that, but I'd probably do the SE. The SE is the sportier one. It's the suspension's tuned a little bit more sporty. You get the bigger wheels and stuff. So for me, I'd probably go for an SE, Camry myself. I would just make sure. I don't think that leather is standard. I can't remember if it was standard or if that was an extra cost thing to add on the leather and that. But that's the other thing that maybe put me off a little bit. Because if I'm stuck with those seats in the SE, then I'd maybe just go up the XSE just for the perforation personally, and the cooling function. But then that makes it a lot more expensive. So it's the way they package stuff sometimes. It's like a slippery slope again. Is if you're used to certain comforts, it makes it tough. And Brian says, are you reviewing Ford Raptor soon? And have you ever driven any Raptors? I would like to know what the Baja suspension feels like on the street as opposed to normal or sport. Is it extra squishy? So, yeah, I did the Baja on the street, I think, briefly. So Raptors, yes, I have done I haven't done, obviously, like the 24s. That's like the brand new one. Those are going to be coming probably later this year for the Raptor. But I did, what you would assume is like the current generation Raptor. I did the Raptor R, and then I did the pre-refreshed Raptor from, I think it was a 2018 or something like that. I spent a week with a 19. So I probably got 4 Raptor reviews of the F-150 Raptor. Haven't done the Bronco Raptor yet. Ford didn't ever send one to the fleet of my area. No one in this fleet has gotten a Ranger or a Bronco Raptor. Hopefully getting a Ranger Raptor. We'll see. But that's probably going to be a while for that one as well. But yeah, I like the Raptor. They're super soft and comfortable. Obviously just it's gigantic. It's super wide. So, I mean, there's all kinds of, things you can extrapolate as far as the complications that brings. But as far as the Baja suspension, I mean, it's super smooth. I think even like Jason Camisa, one of the things he said, like the Raptor is like one of his favorite vehicles because it's like S-class levels of like suspension comfort, in this vehicle that's very, very capable. But I mean, it's really leany. I mean, like you go around corners, you can see in my reviews, I'm going around corners in the Raptor, even in the sport mode where it's supposed to be stiffer. And it's like, whoa, like it's just like, it's very soft, but it's supposed to be that because it's supposed to be doing jumps with ease and all that. And so when you have an off-road suspension, it's going to feel like that. So, but that means it's really great as far as an on-road cruiser as well. So yeah, I'm really happy with the Raptors. I think they're really good for what they are. And yeah, check out the videos. If you search, Mount Maran Raptor or something, it should come right up, and you can see all the videos there. And let me see. Mir's Road Trip says, I know you like Europe. You ever visit the Balkans, such as Bosnia, Serbia, or Bulgaria, or you just prefer visiting Western Europe? I would love to visit all of Europe. I mean, my dad's side of the family originally came from Poland, so I'd love to go to Poland someday. Just never been there. I'd love to see, pretty much all of Europe, outside of, Russia, even, Moscow and stuff seems beautiful, but obviously would stay away from the war-torn areas, sadly. Yeah, I mean, Europe is beautiful. And I was just in Europe this past week. I will talk more about that in a coming video here in early May. But if you follow me on Instagram, you already know I was in Italy this past week in Maranello, and it was an incredible week. I'm still not entirely sure exactly what I can say and what I can't say, so I'm going to just probably be vague and annoying for now about it. But It was an incredible week. And yes, Italy wasn't my first time there, but it's always so good. It was a really really nice time. It's been a few years. Actually, this is the first time since pre-pandemic that I went overseas, and yeah, it was. Oh man, I can't wait to talk more about it. Hopefully, we'll see. Ferrari is very limiting on what you can say in certain cases, even for stuff that you would think would be like totally fine. They're still very particular about how you word things and stuff. So that's why I'm like biting my tongue for now until I know exactly what is good and what's not good. But yeah, it was an incredible week. So anyway, but yeah, Europe's great, and I'd love to see everything at some point. Luke says, at least with a small Miata, you could maneuver away from F-150s and e-brake turn on them. I mean, that's the idea, is that's always been like the defense of small or sporty cars in general. Like, you're more able to maneuver away from stuff. And that's good if you are in a situation where you have the reaction time to do that, but that's not always a luxury that you have, and that's the kind of concerning thing to me, at least. And let me see. Good Stick says the previous gen Mercedes C-Class and entry-level BMWs had halogen lights on them. Unforgivable when Honda and Toyota offer them on basic models. Yeah, it's insane that it took, I think, Mercedes till 2019 to finally make LEDs standard. And even then, there were reflector LEDs. They went cheap on it still. Yeah, the German companies are amazing at nickel and diming people, and they get away with it because people still pay extra for crap like that. And it's just like, it's insane. But let me see. Jordan says, any news / buzz talk for a hybrid EV school bus in the U.S.? There's a lot of them that are coming online. That is one area that is getting electrified pretty quickly, it seems. There's a lot of grants and stuff that are also supporting that. But, I mean, diesel fumes around kids, like it's a no-brainer. It's like, it's crazy that it took this long to get those switched over. But yeah, like, I actually was reading an article last year about like someone, I think it's the Bluebird bus company, or one of the CEOs was doing an interview and was just saying like, yeah, like they have enormous demand for that. And it seems like, at least around here, the school buses are supposed to be fully electric by, I think, 2026 or something. So it's definitely happening for sure. I mean, that is one of the top priorities. I mean, we're talking, they're saying how they want to, electrify all the commercial sector stuff, at least the, short-term stuff, garbage trucks, things like that, that all have a predictable route every day and always go back to a garage every night and charge. It's like the perfect situation for an EV. And so all that stuff's going to be electrified really quickly, but school buses especially are going to be pretty soon here, which will be great, because I remember all the days of, even as a kid, I never enjoyed smelling those smelly buses, so glad that's something my daughter hopefully won't have to experience. Mike says, hey, Matt, I watched your Camry video, but how do you think the Accord stacks up against it? Camry has a lot of stuff standard, but what does the Accord really have that Camry doesn't? The Accord has more plushness. You have padded knee areas. You have, just everything in the Accord. The buttons and stuff still feel a little nicer in the Honda. Sorry, I got like some gunk in my throat here. But so I think, to me, like, as nice as the XSE and the XLEs are in the Camry, I still think if you're looking for the most luxurious thing, Accord is probably going to be a little bit better. But then you look at all the other stuff, as far as the Accord being down on power, the Accord, giving you less for your money. It's, over 40 grand without all-wheel drive, versus like a loaded Camry all-wheel drive with more power. And the all-wheel drive is, about $1,600 more, basically, roughly speaking. So, I mean, I think the value is just a little lacking now with the Accord, just how well they priced Camry. But if you don't need all the power and all that, I still think the Accord probably rides. I mean, I'd have to I'd have to really do like a back-to-back drive, but especially on my own roads, because, I was driving the Camry in San Diego and I drove the Accord here in Pittsburgh, which doesn't have roads as nice as San Diego. So, there's a lot of those little variables that don't make it a level playing field in my mind from a experience standpoint. But from my experience, I'd say Accord is still the slightly plusher, more comfy, Cruiser probably, but I think Camry really closed the gap a lot with this new generation. But I mean, I'd really have to like look at, all the pricing exactly, look at all the specs and really sit down and dissect that. And I'll probably do that a little bit more once I get a Camry for a week, to have a little bit more time to develop my thoughts on it and, maybe do a little bit more of the pricing discussion there like I do in those. So stay tuned for more on that. But I'd say those are the main, comparison things in my mind. There's also weird things like Accord doesn't have satellite radio, which is so bizarre. So if you like satellite radio, Accord's out. There's just Honda makes some weird choices with some stuff these days. So there's a lot there, but I think, it also seems like the hybrid gets better fuel economy in the Camry versus the Accord and stuff. So, there's some key advantages, I think, to both, but it's a tighter race than it was before. Because I always, in the past, for the past generation, was like, oh, Accord is easily the better car over Camry. And for me, at least, especially if you're going for a regular one, you're not talking about the TRDs or stuff like that. If you're talking regular stuff, I always like the Accord better. It handled better, interior was nicer, rode better. Just to me in all the ways, the Accord was the clear winner. But now it's not so cut and dry in my mind, and they've really, really impressed me a lot with the new Camry. But Justin, thank you so much for being a member for 20 months here. He says, hey, Matt, hope you had a good weekend. If it were your money, would you get a new 4Runner or the new Land Cruiser? I mean, I don't, none of us know the pricing for a 4Runner yet, so it's hard to say exactly. If I were to make a bet and say it's going to be, Tacoma pricing plus $1,000, or something like that, and we just kind of work with those kind of numbers. I mean, it's tough because I wouldn't get either of them if I had to pick between one or the other. I don't know. I mean, if I can get a savings in the 4Runner, I'd probably just be like, it's good enough and go for the 4Runner. But I do really like the Land Cruiser, and if you have the disposable cash to go up to the Land Cruiser, I mean, to me, it did feel, again, I have not driven the 4Runner, but just sitting in the 4Runner, I mean, it's gonna feel like a Tacoma. It's a Tacoma behind the wheel. It's a Tacoma as far as the powertrain. I mean, there'll be slight tuning differences, I'm sure, and differences, but it's essentially, to me, in my mind, it's going to be a Tacoma as far as the driving experience. So Tacoma's great. Land Cruiser is it's bigger, it's more substantial. Land Cruiser just feels more like an adventure vehicle. It just feels more fun. Tacoma's fine, and it's a good truck, and it's fun with the performance versions and stuff. And stay tuned, I'll have more impressions on the Tacomas with the iForce Max powertrain here coming this week. That's when the embargo is dropping on Tuesday. But Land Cruiser just, to me, is more fun. The Land Cruiser is the one, when I walk up to it, it puts a smile on my face. When I get behind the wheel, it's just this big, blocky, all this huge glass. It's better for adventuring. I mean, because I noticed this with the GX as well, where, the windows are so huge, and I was driving through beautiful Arizona and the GX, and just getting to see the beauty of Arizona with, these huge windows to look out of. It's just a really good, adventure kind of vehicle. And again, 4Runner should be fine at that as well. But, if you have the disposable cash, I would say go for the Land Cruiser personally, or better yet, go for a GX would be my ultimate pick in that kind of a segment. And I really like the GX. I'm not someone that's into body on frame, SUVs at all. But if I wanted a big SUV, like GX is really probably towards the top of my list. Land Cruiser is good, but just Land Cruiser is so close with pricing. When you're talking about something that expensive, another few grand isn't usually going to be a make it or break it kind of thing. So I'd probably just go like base model GX and be pretty happy with that. They have such good equipment on the base model. I don't need all the off-road crap. So I'd be good just going for the street friendly version of the GX and call it a day. But, Land Cruiser is great, though. I really was impressed with it. And Kyle, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships there. I really appreciate that, and appreciate that every week as well. I'm glad to see everyone's able to grab those memberships as well. Let me see other member questions here. Mira says, would you rather have the Miata or a Fiat 124 Abarth? So I'm very conflicted about those cars. I love the Abarth styling. What I want is an Abarth with the ND2 motor in it. That's what to me, that would be the perfect combination of those two. Because, that Fiat motor could be a little iffy. It sounds like over 100,000 miles. Miata, you don't have that worry. I like the styling of the Fiat better, though, hands down. I think the Fiat was so cool, so underappreciated, and so underrated. Someone was asking in the last week or the week before that about, whether or I think the question was like, what is an underrated vehicle that didn't sell very well but will be a future classic? And I feel like the rebirth of the 124 is one of those vehicles that, like, no one appreciated in modern times here, but then I feel like it's going to be kind of this cool, like, quirky, like, wow, it's super rare, no one has one, everyone had Miatas, their Miatas are everywhere, like you see NA Miatas and MBs and every kind of generation Miatas everywhere. But when's the last time you saw 124? And that's going to be the big money thing. I mean, rare cars don't always have to mean that they're going to be valuable someday, but it's a sporty car, and it sounds great when you put the Monza exhaust on the Abarth and stuff. And so I feel like they have a bright future potentially. But yeah, I just wish there was an ND2 motor in the Abarth. That would be perfect for me, and maybe that'd be a fun, like, project car, although it'd be very anticlimactic. But if I were just building cars for the fun of it, I would totally take a 124 Abarth and put an ND2 motor in it. Raphael says, something I really like about the new Camry is just how much even the base model has. So it's not necessary to get the top trim, right? And I love that they, just make the base models so good these days. It's really nice to see. And this is why a lot of people are upset about high pricing in cars and stuff, but you really got to take a hard look at the base models now, because you get so much standard equipment and stuff that maybe if you weren't someone who considered a base model in the past, like, you maybe should now, because they just stuff so much stuff into them now that, it makes the higher trims less and less necessary these days. And Good Stick says, my friend has a 2004 Mazda Speed Miata. Very fun to drive. That would be awesome. Yeah, when I worked at the car dealership way back when, I think I took one up and down the street once, but I never really got a good drive in a Mazda Speed Miata. I'd love to try one of those out someday. And Good Stick says, older Hondas had horrible transmission issues. My friend went through 3 transmissions on his 02 Accord. Yeah, I also had a coworker way back when who had an 06, I think, Accord Coupe, that he was just like, that thing was just nickel and diming him. It was not good, which is surprising, for Honda. But yeah, there was kind of a rough patch there, I think, in the mid 2000s in some ways. Fuchs says, do you think the next RAV4 will be hybrid only? Looking at Toyota trends recently, I'm thinking about picking one up before it becomes hybrid only, or should I wait in case it still offers a gas engine? Yeah, I mean, I think I saw a rumor about this as well. And now that we saw what they did with Camry, yeah, I would say I'm pretty confident that you're going to see the same copy paste, the same powertrain you see in Camry is going to be in RAV4. I think it's going to be pretty, I mean, again, I don't know anything, but I would say, yeah, that's a pretty safe bet. That's out of all the future car speculation and stuff, that's one that I'm more confident about than most. I think, yeah, that's going to be probably the way it's going to go. So if you don't want hybrid, I would get the current generation, because I really doubt they're going to do a non-hybrid RAV4, unless they run into some kind of production issue where they can't keep up with hybrid or with Camry demand. If they're churning out 300,000 Camrys a year, and they run out of hybrid components. But I would assume that they're not going to tell people they're not going to give up market share on Camry. Camry is a huge seller for them. You're not going to say, hey, we're going to do hybrid unless you can deliver and do that many hybrid versions. So as long as they have the production bandwidth to do enough hybrid there for RAV4 as well, doing 400,000 units roughly a year on that too, if they can allocate those those hybrid systems, then I would say, yeah, they're going to do that. But I'm pretty confident they will. Let me see. So Luke says, I've noticed Honda hybrids fall on their face and fuel economy on long freeway drives. Yeah, I mean, I think I can't remember what I got. I can't remember my fuel economy and my past the cord videos, but it's always been like, pretty good, and it's sporty and punchy in some ways. So it's, but it's definitely Honda's hybrids have never, in my experience at least, performed, as well as the Toyotas as far as fuel economy goes. So yeah, I feel like it's. I mean, I like the Honda system. I like the way that they deliver the power. I like the way they set it up. It's a good system. I'd certainly take a hybrid Honda over, the other like CVT regular, turbo stuff that they have. Like it's to me punchier and more entertaining with the hybrid system. But yeah, Toyota's I still think king of the hybrids right now. But Jordan, thank you so much for another super chat. He says Ford EV Thunderbird or EV Charger. That would be awesome if they did an electric Thunderbird. That would be super cool. And I don't know. We would have to see how they would package that and how, whether they did a retro design or something futuristic or what. But I'd love to see an electric Thunderbird. That'd be really cool. I'm really excited for the EV Charger as well, though. I know I'm probably one of like 5 people that can say that, but I am genuinely excited for the EV Charger. I'm really excited to see how they do the exhaust. I'm really excited because they haven't finalized the exhaust, by the way. There's sound clips out there, but that's why they wouldn't start it up whenever I was there for the first look video that I filmed. I asked them, I'm like, can we turn it on? And they're like, no, like it's not done yet. We don't want to give people the wrong impression. So I'm excited to see what the final tune is for the exhaust on the EV Charger. I'm excited to see how this perform and what they do to make them exciting. There's a patent out there for like vibrations inside the car and stuff too. So I mean, as you saw probably all the glowing reviews this past week for Ioniq 5N, I'm hoping to get my hands on one of those, by the way, at some point this summer, but at this point it's looking like it's going to be like mid to late summer, maybe even into the fall. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, that shows hopefully that a lot of people like they can be fun, they can be exciting, they can be good. And I think the Charger has the same potential. But yeah, I'd love to see Ford do a Thunderbird. And let me see. Mike says, I know you can't tell us, but did they have pricing available for the journalists for the Crown Signia for your guys' video? I don't think so. I don't remember. I don't think. Yeah, that one's not coming for a while, but I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure we didn't have it. So I mean, because that one's coming later. That's why the embargo's, in June. So we got a little ways to go on that one. It's not coming, as soon as all the others that I've reviewed here. So that's why they decided to push out that embargo. The embargo was going to be closer. And then they changed it, like a week beforehand. I think they just realized like they don't want to have everyone review it. And then people are waiting until the summer, to even see one. So yeah, but I don't think there's pricing yet. But I mean, all these Toyotas, the pricing, it's not too hard to figure out the ballpark. You look at, everything else that it's priced around. You look at, they can't step on Lexus's toes, but they can't step on the toes of the models beneath it. They're all sandwiched in so tight that you're really, it's not a giant mystery in my mind, even again, not knowing pricing. I mean, I could probably give you a pretty close ballpark. Just, go on Toyota's site and, see what a loaded, whatever is pricing wise and, where a Lexus, NX or something starts at, it's going to give you a pretty tight range, I think. It's just got everything so tightly packed at Toyota there. And Good Six says, if you thought Toyota held on to models too long, you should look at the Hindustan Ambassador Morris Oxford. It ran from 1953 to 2014. That is an impressive run. That puts Toyota to shame. Jordan says, what would be the major influences on vehicle sales now? YouTube reviews, heavily produced commercials, grand reveals, otherwise. I think a lot of people, it's price, and I think it's just packaging things well. When I look at like what is popular, like what is selling like crazy right now, it's just like things like the Toyota Grand Highlander. It's gigantic, and that's what people wanted. They wanted tons of third row space in something that didn't hurt their eyes every time they walked out to it. It's a nice looking, conservative looking, giant thing with all the space, all the tech, all the luxury, and it's priced pretty well, for that segment. I think those types of things, same goes for Telluride and Palisade, just, that's the kind of stuff that sells really well. I think off-roadable trucks, rugged looking stuff, sells really well. I think it's just like the vehicle setup. I think, the medium of delivery doesn't matter as far as whether they hear about it on YouTube or, something else. I think like Super Bowl commercials, things like that don't really make much of a dent, honestly, these days. I think it's just, if people are looking for something, they will find it. If you're, a family that has a ton of kids, like, you're going to be looking for what's the best minivan out there, what's the best three-row crossover, and you'll see all your options. Nothing's going to be hidden from you. You should, if you're doing any kind of decent research, you'll say, here's all the ones. You do your own research, look at reviews, or you go around and, kick tires at the dealership, whatever it is. People figure it out on their own, but I think that it's really, just pricing things well. And then also these days, it's all about the interest rate. The companies that are doing the good interest rates, it's all about the money. At the bottom line is, it comes down to money. If something is cheap, people are going to buy tons of them. It's, even like, the Hyundai Ioniq 6, they've run this lease deal now, $239 a month with zero down for an Ioniq. And I called a Hyundai dealer just for kicks a few weeks ago, and they're like, we're selling Ioniq 6s faster than Palisades for, all the stuff out there. Oh, no one wants EVs, blah, blah, blah. They want an EV if it's $239 a month with zero down. All of a sudden, everyone's like, I got no problem with an EV. Let's go buy it. It's $239 a month. So it's all, price is always the all important thing. So you want to have EVs sell better than Palisades, you make them cheap and nice for that cheap price. Obviously, I don't know how long Hyundai can afford to offload Ioniq 6s for $239 a month. But this shows, it's a really good example, and it's a really good reminder that, like, it's just the price. People are, they're, half of the car market says they're open to EVs. It just, price is the main thing for people. So that goes for anything. I think you want to have a car do well, price it well. Why is the Camry so popular? Why is my video, doing better than the average car review on my channel? Because it's priced really well. They lowered the price on the new Camry compared to the last generation hybrid front wheel drive. It's the price. When you tell people, hey, it's $500 cheaper than the old one, that gets people's attention, especially these days. So I think price is king. And Rogue One, thank you so much for the super chat. They said, hey, Matt, I've been a fan since Super Dirks fan days. Love your content. Got $45,000 to spend looking at GR Corolla F87 M2 competition and 981.2 Cayman S. Thoughts? The GR Corolla is really, I guess they're all kind of, very different in a lot of ways. This is going to come down to what you value as fun and what you are looking for. I'm assuming M2 competition can you get that in a manual, or is that one auto only? If you're talking, because you're talking last generation, right? I can't remember if that was if that was automatic only or not, but assuming that you're flexible on 2 doors, 4 doors, all-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, manual, auto, and none of those things matter to you, just from a driving experience standpoint, with those pros and cons put off to the side. I haven't done the competition version of the M2. I've only done the regular M2 for the prior generation and even for the new generation here. So I don't think the M2 comps out right for the new one, but 981.2 Cayman S. I don't think I've ever even done one of those. I've done the GT4, and then I did the regular. I did the regular Cayman S for like the first gen way back when. So, it's tough. I don't know. They're all so good in different ways. I can see your dilemma as far as what to choose. The Super Ducks fan of me would say GR Corolla, because that's really like the spiritual successor to the STI in my mind. But M2 comp's got to be great, because I love the M2s. They're really fun. I think it's probably the best thing that BMW makes are the M2s, honestly. Cayman's great. The thing about the Cayman, so I can't remember 981.2. I'm a little foggy on my numerical designations for those. I did the GTS of this current generation too, with the turbo boxer motor, and they're good. I would just say Cayman is a little too sanitized. If you like precision and you don't love drama as much, you just want a scalpel of a car, then Cayman is that. I'd say the M2 and even the GR Corolla are more rowdy. So if that sounds like a better time to you, then I'd go for one of those two. If you want to, just do the fastest lap times and just bomb through a back road with the most precision, I'd say Cayman's gonna be the way to go for those. So it's really gonna come down to just your mood, your driving style, what you prefer. But and if we're also talking about something you're going to keep long term, you're going to be paying a lot more for maintenance for the Porsche and the BMW versus the GR Corolla. So there's that component as well. But obviously, like, you're in a BMW, you're in a Porsche, much nicer interior than a souped up Corolla. So there's a lot to unpack there. That's a really tough one to just pick one, without knowing more context. To try and help you as far as which one I would pick. I'd probably I'd be between the M2 or the GR Corolla. Probably go GR Corolla. But M2 is also, they're a ton of fun. So no wrong answer there, but hopefully some of what I brought up helps you with your clarity a little bit, depending on how you feel about all those various things. And I'll keep an eye out if you have any follow-up questions as well, Rogue. I'd be more than happy to. I says, okay, manual 2014 to 16 years for the Cayman. Yeah, to me, like, those years weren't super exciting for the Cayman personally. So yeah, I would say it'd be between M2 and GR Corolla for me. But the Porsche does have the better manual. It's like there's so many back and forth things. There's no wrong answer there. But, like I said, hopefully some of the stuff that I mentioned gives you a little bit of clarity. Hopefully I'm some help. Looks like Sixlick says the M2 comps might be hard to get for 45 grand. So if that disqualifies those, then I'd say, yeah, GR Corolla would probably be my pick. But thank you again, Rogue, for the super chat. And Fook, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, with comfort and somewhat fun driving experiences as priorities, CX-5 or RAV4? CX-5. That one's kind of easy. And thank you, by the way, for your fifth super chat on a live stream. I appreciate that. Yeah, CX-5 is really good. I'll be having a review on CX-5 Turbo coming here next week, I think is when that one's posting up. Not this coming week, but the following week. And so, yeah, I'd say CX-5, though, is definitely. RAV4 is fine. They're totally good, but they're not the most comfortable, especially compared to CX-5, and they're not they're good comfort, but not as good as CX-5. Driving experience is better in a CX-5 as well. So I'd say CX-5 is the clear winner in that one in my mind. And thank you again for the super chat. Jordan, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, 2015 Fusion owner, when did the coupe four-door design come into play? Less backseat headroom. Yeah, I think that was, introduced with the Mercedes CLS, was the first vehicle to bring in a four-door coupe thing. And then everyone kind of chased them after that because that was a really big deal in mid to early to mid 2000s. I think it was like 2005 those came onto the scene, something like that. Everyone wanted to chase them on that, and the rest is history. But I think some went further than others, and obviously like a Fusion to me doesn't have a bad back seat. But yeah, I know the traditional hey, let's have like a nice squared off kind of sedan thing is kind of gone by the wayside for the most part. Let me see, getting back to the other member questions here. Sixlick says, love the Fiat with a K24 swap. Fiat, yeah, with a K24. That'd be fun too. Yeah, that'd be a good time. So many fun build ideas for those, I think. Zachary says, I can't recall and don't want to search at the moment. Have you done a minivan review lately? I have not. I did a bunch of them, in the same year whenever they all kind of came out with a new version. So I did, I think it was 2022. That's when I did Pacifica, Sienna, Carnival, and Odyssey. I did all of them basically. I'm going to be getting in a plug-in hybrid Pacifica here later this spring. And then what is the other one that's coming in? I think that's it for now. It's just the Pacifica So, I mean, maybe Kia will end up sending a refresh Carnival at some point, but my last one didn't get any views really, so I'm probably not going to be jumping to do another one of those. But Pacifica plug-in hybrid is one that I actually was interested in doing because no one still has done a plug-in hybrid. Even Toyota, you think Toyota would be doing a prime version of the Sienna, especially with how underpowered the Sienna is, and there's nothing. It's so bizarre that that's the one niche where Chrysler was way ahead of the curve on the electrification stuff, and no one has bothered to chase them with that. So I'm really curious if like the Pacifica plug-in hybrid is this like great like hidden secret that no one's getting any limelight to, or if there's a good reason why people aren't more excited about those. So that'll be interesting to test out. And let me see. So Six Licks, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, considering Two's absence, it's clear that he either found his way out of the dungeon or tragically met his end in memory of Two. I hope Two goes back and watches this live stream after the fact so that everyone knows that he's not forgotten and he has made his mark on the live streams here. Yeah, I appreciate the super chat, and you're very right. I don't know what happened. I will let you know if I see anyone running out of the basement here. But yeah, it's I appreciate that Six Licks, and hopefully Two comes back next week, and hopefully he's doing well. And let me see. Trent Car Guy says, honestly, I like the way Hyundai is going about designing the EVs and making them look retro. I know, I love the Ioniq 5. Even the regular one looks super cool with the design, in my opinion. Raphael says the Ioniq 5N sounds fake gears. If companies had done this from the beginning, more of us would have been on board with EVs. Fart sounds don't cut it. I agree. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see, it'd be interesting to see. And I think even Jason Camisa mentioned this in his Instagram post, where he's very curious to see who buys Ioniq 5N, especially at that price point of, what is it, like mid 60s? Are we talking like Golf R owners that have some disposable cash? Are we talking like, other people that, just want something sporty that are newcomers? Are we pulling people from like Model 3 Performance, Model Y Performance, trading in for something like that? I don't know. It's interesting, but I mean, I hope they sell well, and I hope that it gets. I just hope it does well for them, because I hope that kind of creativity gets rewarded. Because if it doesn't get rewarded, then it's going to go away. They're going out on a limb here with this car, and if public sentiment isn't impressed with it, then it's going to get back to just like, okay, let's just make everything silent and boring. So I really am like applauding the creativity, the boldness, because you don't see car companies take risks like that very often. And so to me, that's like something I gotta I gotta give Hyundai a standing ovation, and same with Dodge for doing these types of things. Like, it's, obviously you can turn everything off, so it's not like you have to have that kind of an experience, but I just like giving people that option and just trying to make them more exciting, like, with that stuff, so it's not just a one-trick pony of like, wow, it's really fast in a straight line, but it has other things to keep you entertained, that, like you said, aren't fart sounds. So yeah, I'm excited for it, and we will see. But there's a lot of enthusiasts, though. It's like, if it's not 100% genuine, like, I'm not into it. So we will just see how that plays out. And Stratus Edge, thank you so much for joining the Matt Maran Motoring Club. I really appreciate it. And yeah, anyone else that always wants to join, there's always join buttons there. If you go into the description of this video or any video, there's a link there. It should lead you right to the subscription page for anyone that does want to get that priority answering. But welcome, Stratus Edge. And Jordan, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, BMW bringing a wagon to the States, a possible push for other companies like Dodge Magnum. Not unless they can sell them in low numbers at high profit levels. I mean, that's really the reason why that car is coming here, because they know they can price it at literally whatever they want, and people will open up their checkbooks and buy everyone that they import. So that's why M5 wagon is coming. And honestly, it's kind of funny they haven't brought prior generations, because that was always going to be the case, I think, especially at least in the past 10 years here. But I'm glad they finally saw the light and are, following Audi there and bringing the wagon. And Mercedes, I guess, has done that as well. But yeah, it's I think it's going to be one of those things, unfortunately, that's just like, one of those cool things that only rich people can, have the ability to get, because, otherwise the profit margins just aren't there, because it just costs too much to crash test a new body style and bring it over and certify it, and all these types of things you got to do. It's just so expensive that if you're talking about something that's a low profit margin vehicle, you're not going to have the margins there to justify it, especially considering the lower take rate and stuff. But again, whenever take rate doesn't matter, whenever it's a blank check kind of operation, that's when you get that cool stuff. But unfortunately, that blank check operations require blank check books, to buy them as well. And so I think that stuff's going to remain, out of reach. And the same thing's going to go, I think, for V8s and things like that. Eventually, you will be able to get V8s. You'll be able to get V10s, V12s, I think, for a long, long time to come. It's just all that stuff is going to be pushed up market and, just become the stuff of rich people, fun days. It's same thing goes for, if we really want to get dystopian, car insurance for gas powered stuff, registration, restrictions, all that stuff. I think they will let people pay, exorbitant amounts of money to have the V12s, to be paying $10, $15 for gas a gallon, whatever the case is, if it's e-fuels or whatever, to keep the gas stuff going down the road. It's all going to get more and more expensive and squeeze people out that way. I think that's going to be, one of the ways that stuff will transition to EV stuff eventually as well, beyond just the fact that a lot of people just aren't going to want to deal with gas cars. But then the people who do want to, it's one of those things that's just, as it progresses, you're going to see there's less demand for gas, so therefore gas gets more expensive, and it's always going to kind of be this teeter-totter thing, and you're going to see all that stuff get more and more expensive. And the wagons and all that are like an early sign of that. A wagon wasn't something wild or crazy like Magnums and stuff, were not super expensive or rare or anything. And that's just, now sporty wagons are going to be this high-end exotic kind of thing. So it's a early predictor of, I think, the way the enthusiast world is going, unfortunately. And let me see. So where was I here? I'm getting another drink. Luke says, my uncle has a 2015 Venza and he's looking at a new car this year. I'm trying to convince him to wait for the Crown Signia. Yeah, I mean, it's a car that I can't talk about because I'll be under embargo here for the next 2 months. Aside from what I've said in my little walk around video, but I mean, it's the obvious stuff. It's bigger. It's this supposed to be this more comfortable kind of thing. And I think if people are looking for something, it's a nice step up from RAV4. Venza, it was in the past, kind of like that thing. And with the new Venza, it wasn't really as big as everyone was hoping it would be and all that. I think Crown Signia kind of fixes that with the sizing stuff of finally giving you a big 2-row, big-ish. I mean, it's still not quite as big as some of the others, like the CX-70 from Mazda, but it's going to be just a nice step up in size, is I guess as far as I can say right now. But there's lots of good stuff. I think Santa Fe is really impressive. I just reviewed that recently as well. That's another good one. And the whole midsize 2-row segment, and I guess that's a 3-row, but smaller, like 2-row or smaller 3-row segment for the midsize segment is really heating up, and it's good to see after having years and years of the same old Ford Edges, Nissan Muranos, all the boring stuff. Now you finally have some more exciting options, which is great. The Good Stick says, a couple of days ago, my friend asked me to take a look at a 2008 Mini Cooper for $3,000 with the automatic. I told him to run. I mean, R56s seem like they are hit or miss. I mean, mine obviously was terrible. If you know my history of my 2009, I think mine was 2008 as well. Yeah, Mini Cooper S. Wasn't a good experience, but my buddy had, I think, a 2009 and R56 Mini Cooper S. His was great, no issues. So, I mean, but it seems like the consensus is there's more bad apples than good ones. So, yeah, I mean, $3,000 is pretty tempting. I don't know what the rest of the car looked like, but for $3,000, I mean, most stuff you buy for $3,000 these days isn't going to be a terrible buy, because that's almost nothing is that cheap anymore. But Yeah, it's probably going to be problematic. So I'm sure that's probably a good call. Um, and Trent Car Guy says, I find it funny that trends come and go, and then you have the Suburban and Tahoe that have been chugging along for decades with the same basic formula. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of companies know their buyers, and they know those buyers don't like change. There's a lot of those buyers, and so sticking with the same old for the most part, and keeping the tech modern enough and all that, I think is all you need to do for some of that stuff. I mean, you kind of see this with the trucks as well, the full size trucks. Nobody's really reinventing the wheel over there, but it's all these nice evolutionary little changes to make them a little bit better, very slowly and gradually, but they're getting better every year with all those little innovations. So, it's nothing wrong with that, but it's definitely not the most exciting part of the segment to follow there of the car world. But Six Lick said, I heard the Ioniq 5N is being considered a lot by EV haters because of the sole reason on how it drives. Apparently really good. I love how they look personally. Yeah, and we'll see. We will see if it wins people over. If it's, it's just I think this is I've talked about this with the Charger in the past. The Charger EV is going to really separate people who truly care about drag times from people who actually care about the experience, but acted like they cared about the fast times in the past. Even the street racers and people like that. I mean, it's really going to be, put your money where your mouth is now. Are you actually at the drag strip every weekend? If you are, then you're wasting your time if you're not in the electric Charger, because it's going to be faster. It's going to do a perfect launch every single time. It's going to be the drag racing king, compared to the old Chargers and Challengers. So, and I think it's the same thing with a lot of these other performance vehicles. It's like, you want to smoke someone in a red light? EV is the best way to do that. Always. You want to, have instant power and insanity. The EV is the way to do that, So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. It's really going to put a line in the sand of, where do you fall? Are you someone who really does care about the maximum performance? Or are you going to, now fall onto the whole, someone who used to talk a tough game, and now all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, I just like the sounds and I don't care if I'm slower anymore. I think there's gonna be a lot of that as well. And that's okay. I'm one of those people who, doesn't need to, have the fastest thing out there, but I just like the experience. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think a lot of people who've acted like they were, drag racing kings are really going to be like, oh, now I like the experience. I don't care about being fast. We'll see how long all the tough guys and their Hellcats and stuff can hold out on losing to all the electric Chargers before they finally cave and get one themselves. But let me see. Trent Car Guy says, Pacific is a good car. We use them for shuttles at my job. Yeah, they seem like they're pretty solid vehicles. I've heard pretty good things. Let me see. I see Rogue also says, thanks, man. Always appreciate your insight. And yes, you can get an F87 M2 comp for 45. The production years were 16 to 21. Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to try a competition version. I think someone offered me one a while back, and I just never had a chance to review it. Yeah, I'm sure they're great. And let me see. Raphael says, I still don't like the looks of the Ioniq 5, but I really appreciate what they're doing. Yeah, ditto. As far as just the appreciation. But I think in silver, they kind of look like a DeLorean, like a four-door DeLorean. I'd put a little, if I were to get one, I'd just get a little flux capacitor, like cigarette light kind of thing, and have my little cosplaying DeLorean there with the Ioniq 5. Let me see. Six looks to say, and he hopes that Subaru comes out with a Lavorg, either the TS or the STI trim will be a Subaru fan favorite. Yeah, and actually, while I was in Italy this week, which, by the way, speaking of like wagons, and I mean, just everything is still a small car over there for the most part. It's like, man, it's like my spirit animal, I guess you could say, is like definitely like I would be so much happier if the car culture in Europe from a size standpoint, not a single giant oversized bloated thing in sight, not a single one. And even like, I mean, some of the shuttle, there was the one shuttle bus that we were on was a manual transmission still. Even like, and it was a newer vehicle, it was like a newer Mercedes with a manual on this bus. Is great. But I saw a Lavorg, and I think it's actually the first time I saw a Lavorg in person on the street, and I was like, holy crap. Like, I mean, it's not like it's anything amazing. It was actually the last generation Lavorg. But I was like, man, like, yeah, and I don't know why Subaru doesn't bring that there. If I ever go on another Subaru event, I'm really gonna grill them on like, what are you guys doing here? Like, what's going on with Lavorg? Like, it's easy money in my mind. But yeah, I saw Lavorg this past week in Italy. So many cool cars over there. Yeah, every time I was being shuttled around anywhere, I was just staring out the window and like soaking in, like, hey, look, everyone has a small little hatchback. It's amazing. I was like giddy seeing. I've never seen so many hatchbacks since the last time I was in Europe, but every time I'm there, it's like I'm just overjoyed. Like, hey, look, people don't need a car that's the size of the Titanic. It's crazy. It's just like, man. Um, it's nice to get out of the American bubble every once in a while, in my opinion. Anyway, Trent Cargay, thanks so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate it, and glad to see everyone was able to grab those there. Let me see. Sixlick says, Matt, of all the cars you've reviewed, which one was your personal favorite and why? I get this question a lot, and honestly, I don't have a good answer because there's a lot of like, at the top 5, top 10. I don't think I can pick like a single car that is like absolutely like the best thing I've ever driven. And even if we're not talking like objectively best, but just like favorites, and you just said like my favorite, personally, there's a lot. I'd say Jaguar F-Type R is up there. The Z06 from last fall actually is up there. CT5V Blackwing is up there. Lexus LC500 convertible. Ferrari 458 Spider. And I don't know. Those are probably the first like top ones that come to my mind of favorites. I'd say like the most extreme. Yeah, I'd say even with this past week, which I can't talk again about exactly what all I was doing on track, but even with this past week, which got close to the craziest experience I've ever had on track, but CT5V Blackwing was still the craziest experience I have had on track. Just such a wild, amazing, wonderful car, and even the automatic version is amazing. But the fact you can get it with a manual, the supercharged V8. I also love it in the Escalade V, which again, I was just talking about how much, I loathe gigantic SUVs and stuff, but that, I mean, is an awesome gigantic SUV with that supercharged, V8 in it and stuff. So, I mean, those are standouts for sure. But yeah, there's some other cool stuff that I've done in the past. I did a Lamborghini Gallardo Superleggera very briefly. But that wasn't like mind blowing necessarily to me. It was fun, but I just wasn't the best experience because it was just such a limited time. That was in my early days of reviewing. But yeah, there's been a few others, I'm sure, but those are probably the top ones that stand out. Stratus Edge says, hi, Matt, thinking of picking up a pre-owned second-gen IS250. Thoughts on it, or should I look into the IS350s instead? I haven't driven a 250, so I am not a good source of information for that. And yeah, so you're talking second gen. So second gen, that's like the generation that had the ISF, right? Because the first gen was like the IS300 and stuff like that. So yeah, I've never done the IS250. I think there's someone who's offered me either a 250 or a regular 350 of that older generation. I'm hoping to get around to reviewing it at some point, but won't be anytime super soon if you're shopping right now, Stratus. But, it just comes down to how much power you want, really. If you're not needing the most power, I'm sure the IS250 will be fine. You're still talking about a solid Lexus that's, going to be a pretty good buy, probably almost certainly no matter what. It just comes down to how much power you want, really. Yeah, no wrong answer there, just your personal preference and what you can afford, I suppose, as well. And Trent Car Guy says, I may be biased, but I think wagons are underrated. Do we really need all these crossovers? I totally agree. And Luke says, I'd love to watch Doug DeMuro and Scotty Kilmer talk cars in the basement. That would be it'd be interesting, although not something I would watch, but I know a lot of people really like both of them. And let me see. The good stick says, I don't know why electric minivans are not in the market. Apart from the new Volkswagen bus, there's no electric minivans. EVs would make perfect minivans because of the extra space that electric cars give. I agree. I think the minivan segment just isn't huge. So that's why you're seeing they're going in baby steps here. Like we just have the Kia EV9 is now finally like the first like mainstream 3-row electric crossover. They sell more Tellurides and Palisades than they do Carnivals and other minivans. So I think they'll get there. I think Chrysler seems to have their eye on it. I think in one of their press conferences they were like, we introduced the minivan, we invented the minivan. We would like to kind of maybe have that first crack at it if someone else doesn't beat them to it, which it doesn't seem like anyone else will at this point in time, unless Kia pulls a surprise on us and does basically EV9 with sliding doors for a new gen Carnival or something. Outside of that, though, I think that Chrysler's probably gunning to be the first. And I know they said there's a Pacifica refresh coming first, and then there's going to be probably a new gen van. So I mean that's probably at least 5 years off, I'm guessing. So it's going to be a while, but I agree. I think that's something that makes a lot of sense. And, hopefully someone does it, sooner rather than later here. But in the meantime, I hope that actually helps the Volkswagen bus because, man, Volkswagen could use a win. And I like that it's a retro thing for the ID Buzz. So I hope that they actually, get off on the right foot with that thing and that it does well for them. But you see, Jordan says with progression, should more restaurants join forces with major car companies for EV charging stations like Chevy and Whataburger, Kia and McDonald's, Ford and Buc-ee's? I think it's a great idea. And I kind of went off on this on a rant probably a year or two ago on a weekly update whenever Volvo and Starbucks announced a partnership. And I don't know if that's actually followed through on that plan because I haven't seen a Volvo charging station at a Starbucks around here. I think they were starting in the Pacific Northwest and going out from there. But so maybe someone else has seen something like this. But they announced that partnership, and I'm like, yep, this is a great idea. And I said the same thing. Yeah, I went on a whole thing about this a while back where I was like, you would think especially I've done road trips in EVs. If you put two fast food stations or two fast food, places that are pretty equal as far as what they offer and price points and all that kind of stuff. You put a McDonald's and a Burger King, and one has a charger and one doesn't, and it's not so close that I can walk from one to the other. But if there's a distinction there as far as the spacing, I'm going to go for the one that has the charging station. That's done deal. The problem is it's a big investment. Putting in a fast charger. I mean, if you're talking like a multi-stall setup, I mean, you could be talking like $1 million, or at least several $100,000, for a couple of fast chargers. And that's a big chunk of change. That even if, you're getting a handful of EV owners that are choosing McDonald's over Burger King or something like that, how long do you got to do that before you make that money back? So there's those types of things. Obviously, hopefully some of these EV incentives and stuff, for the infrastructure kind of boost that. But I think, it's one of those chicken and the egg things where you're going to have to wait until the demand is higher. Once there's more EVs out there, I think you will see a lot of these companies jump to that because it absolutely makes sense in my mind. If the money side of it works out, to be profitable for these companies. But I think it's definitely a great idea. And I hope we see more of that in the future, so you don't have to, park in a parking lot and then walk across a highway to get to the food spot and things like that you often have to do currently with, some of these charging stations. So that'll be great whenever they get to that point. And let me see. So Raphael says, I've never needed blistering performance. I like looks and sound. My TRD isn't winning races, but I like the looks and the sound, and it's comfy. Yep. I think for a lot of people, that's what it's all about. Making it happen. Glad to see you got a membership there, renewal. And Daniel says, I heard you took Doug DeMuro out to lunch at the Toyota event. How did that go? Definitely did not. He did his own special thing the weekend before all of us plebes showed up to do our humble little reviews. So he was on his own thing there. So yeah, I've never met Doug. I was able to meet the Throttle House. I can't remember which of their names. It was James or Thomas, but I met one of them at the Toyota event, and they were very nice. So that was the biggest car YouTuber that I've talked to recently. I've hung out with Jason Camisa in the past, who's the other big fish these days, but haven't run into Doug, and can't say I'm upset about that. And let me see. I see Chunk Car Guys talking about getting a used Mirage and swapping the powertrain. He says, and TF5PW says, imagine if everyone drove a Mirage with rubber bumpers, insurance would be dirt cheap, and we're driving in traffic could actually be fun. Yeah, that's very true. It's one of those things. Yeah, it's just like that is a European thing. That is everyone has stuff the size of a Mirage over there, and again, insurance is more expensive over there for various other reasons and stuff, but it's you have these tiny little narrow roads in Italy, and you can actually have fun on them because you're in something that doesn't have a ton of power, and the roads are windy, and it's just great. But yeah, it's crazy how everything is just getting more complicated with bigger vehicles, more tech. And I was just talking today about rising insurance costs with my father-in-law, and how it's just car insurance just keeps getting higher and higher. It's crazy. Let me see. B. Mitchell says Doug and Scotty talking cars would represent a personal hell for me. Yeah, I agree with that one. Daniel says, why is Kia abandoning the Optima and Forte names? I don't know. I feel like they just don't have a ton of brand equity in those names. I don't think people, revere those names necessarily. And I think that they have something good going with the K5. And, I just feel like they don't have the heritage and the history there, and all that you see from the Japanese brands and stuff. So they have a little more flexibility with the naming. I think that's why they've switched to K4 for the Forte replacement. And it's not like Forte is some amazing name anyway. Like I don't think anyone's gonna really miss it. So I think that's probably why Kia did that, and I can't say I blame them. You could argue K5 and K4 is more generic, and I can understand that, but to me, I think it fits. But it's a good question. I don't know. I don't think Kia ever gave like an explanation of why they switched, but I'm assuming it's just they think it's more exciting in some way. The Good Stick says why everyone wants a 1,000 horsepower family SUV makes no sense, especially with babies. A Model X Plaid can make a baby sick in seconds. That's true. Yeah. I don't know why the Plaid version of Model X even exists. It's cool, and there's other fast SUVs, but that seems like it's something that probably not a ton of people are interested in. I don't know, but family SUVs, there's certainly a limit, for most of them, unless you go up to the German stuff like the X7 and vehicles like that, where I'm assuming if you were looking for that high performance, you're obviously not doing that, with a baby in the vehicle. Although I will say, whenever we had the Escalade V for a week, my daughter, who was at that time probably only about one and a half something, she kept wanting us to go faster in the Escalade V, and love that acceleration. Love the acceleration. So with babies, obviously they can get a little sicker, but with toddlers, they love the acceleration. I just even this week had the EV9, and stay tuned for my follow-up video on that. But she's like, go fast, daddy. Like, she loves the acceleration there. She's my kid, so big surprise, she's already working on her acceleration reactions. But I agree. Family SUVs definitely don't need to be fast. B. Mitchell says, my favorite Ford dealer quoted me $340,000 for putting in a fast charger anywhere else in town aside from his dealership. So I'll have to be big corp eateries. So it'd have to be big corp eateries stepping up. Yeah, I think it's gonna be that. I think you're also gonna see a lot of service station, gas station kind of companies doing that as well. Because especially it's gonna come down to the type, because like around here, like we have a lot of Sheets, Wawa. These are these big service station kind of gas station places where not only do they do gas, but they have like full service kitchens with ton of things on the menu. giant food sections. They have little sit down areas, all these kinds of things where you can spend more time, and it's not just a in and out, get gas and grab a Coke or something and be on your way. Like it's more of an experiential thing. And I think those types of places, make a lot of sense to add in the chargers. And I know like the Sheets, I mean, most of them around here have, anywhere in the mid-Atlantic area here, they all have EV chargers. I think it makes a lot of sense, and yeah, it's not cheap, but I mean, it's a destination. Every time, you're on a charging, when you're on a road trip in an electric vehicle, like for me, like I go to the Sheets. I mean, I don't love everything about the Sheets, but like they have nice restrooms, they have areas to chill, and they have, a actual full menu there of stuff. It's a whole lot better than sitting in the back of a Walmart parking lot, So like, I think there's going to be, I think those kind of, and also like even like, Shell and companies like that are like starting to some of them are buying back some of these small little self-owned gas stations and making them more corporate so that they can bring the corporate money in to put those chargers in. Because otherwise, if you're telling a little shop owner that has like single gas station, you got to spend that kind of money for an EV station, they're never going to do it. So you bring in the corporate money and you make it a corporate stop. That's kind of, I guess, the way forward for some of those gas stations to get that kind of stuff in there as well. But otherwise, yeah, it's going to have to be the giants, like McDonald's and stuff to put those things in. And Jordan, thank you so much for the super chat as well. He says, disappointed or curious for an EV Bullet? I mean, I think it would be potentially cool, because like you even saw this past week, they have the new digital gauges for the Mustangs that are like from the 68s, and something I wish they would have done in my Bullet, they didn't. But if there was an electric Bullet that sounded exactly like the 68 and had a whole infotainment system and all that stuff looking like a 68 or something like that, could be really cool. Some people would say that, Steve McQueen would rise out of his grave and, take a pitchfork to everyone at Ford if they did that. I mean, I don't know, but it's a cool idea. I don't know if I would go for it, even if I had the money for something like that. Because I feel like the authenticity of something like that is important with that car in particular, but I'm not opposed to it. And, give me another 5 or 10 years and, it could be something I could actually be really excited about. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, if the Charger turns out to be really cool and they do that well, then that kind of is an early, I guess, a sign of what Ford could do with, an electric Mustang down the road too. And it's kind of fun because, that's kind of, the new Charger is based on the looks of the 68. It's like the bad guy car from Bullet is going to be an EV. It's going to be hopefully a cool EV. We'll see. It's kind of funny that the bad guy car is the one that's going the EV route before the good car in the movie is. It's kind of funny, but all right, let me see. Also interesting to note we got another 15 minutes or so here to go, but it looks like Sunday is winning big time here in the Sunday version of this Saturday or Sunday poll. So on last week, we did it on Saturday. It was like exactly 50-50 split. So now the 50-50 split on Saturday's poll, and now the Sunday poll being heavily favoring Sunday. I think the answer is that Sunday is the way to keep going with these. So, yeah, we will. I think that kind of settles that. We will stick to Sundays here, I think, for these. I appreciate everyone that voted in that poll, by the way, as well. I'll leave it up here till the end just for kicks, but I think it's. I think that gives us some clarity there. So thank you for that. And let me see other member questions here. So. Let me see. Zachary says, echoing an earlier sentiment, I have shifted to a mindset where a car should either be a sports car or a safe, reliable couch. In my opinion, stuff in between tends to fall short otherwise. Yeah, I mean, there are some that I think do a pretty good job of straddling both. Like, I think like that's one of the things I love about the Bullet is, it can be all things in a lot of ways. At least to me, it is where it's, it's great for running grocery runs in, it's comfortable, it's soft, it's relaxed, especially with the Magnum Ride dampers, it's relaxed in that, mode. But then if I want to chase someone down a back road, I can, put the loud exhaust on, put the stiff suspension on, and all of a sudden it's pretty dynamic. I mean, yes, it's still no GR86 on a back road. It's not a full blown sports car, but it's a really dynamic car, and I love that duality. And I think a lot of new cars these days have had more and more of that. But I think that you are still starting to see more and more stuff going to the like couch kind of side. And I think that it's absolutely like I was saying earlier, and echoing what you're saying. I think it's definitely a nice change instead of everything having to be sporty. I love that companies are now just accepting, like, you know what, like this can just be soft and comfortable, and that's okay. I think it's nice to see people finally have that clarity of mission. And Six says, can you share a particular memorable experience you had while testing a vehicle? Well, I mean, one fun story. One of the more eventful reviews was back whenever I was doing one of the AVA events, which were the Automotive Video Awards, which, by the way, are hopefully coming back here sometime later this year. But was doing a review of the G63 AMG, G-Wagon, and was just cruising on a road. And I had like done most of my review already, and it was, I was just kind of cruising. I was towards the end of the video. I wasn't doing anything crazy, but I had this Corolla like on my bumper, and I was doing at least like 5 or 10 over already. And I'm like, man, I am so sick of this Corolla just like riding my butt. And so I like stomped onto this G-Wagon, went like, took off just for a little bit. Then I slowed down. And as I was slowing down, I passed a state trooper, Washington State trooper, or maybe it was, Washington State. And they flipped the U-turn, came after me. I pulled over, and do you know why I pulled you over? And I'm always honest. I'm like, I know I was going a little fast. I apologize. I'm like, I was actually like just trying to get away from this car behind me, but I know it's no excuse. I'm sorry, I was going fast. And then he's like, you look kind of familiar. He's like, do I know you or something? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, you did those Subaru videos, didn't you, back in the day? I'm like, oh yeah, Subaru X fan. He was a fan. And I was like, phew, because he was, he let me off and was like, just take it easy. But I know, what you do and stuff. So it's all good. Just, be safe. And I'm like, absolutely. And he actually gave me his business card. And like, if you ever run into any trouble, give me a call. And I'm like, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I think he actually had a WRX or an STI or something, but that was, I think I can definitely count on one hand how many times I've been pulled over the past, ever since I've had my license, honestly. And that was very handy. Exactly the exact person I needed to have pull me over in that moment, and very thankful for that. So that was one of probably the most memorable experience while reviewing a car, because I'm always paranoid, about, if someone happens to see me, while I'm doing my first acceleration reaction or something, and gets the wrong idea that I'm just like racing around all the time, even though I very rarely am actually driving that fast. It's just for those little bursts, and then I'm done, typically. But that was the most memorable one, I think, for sure. And of course, I didn't include any of that in the video or anything, but it was an interesting one there. But let me see. Jordan, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, U.S. rest stops to host EV charging. Yeah, a lot of them already have, and I think we're going to see more and more of that for sure. But I mean, at least around here, there's a lot, especially Tesla superchargers, but even more and more of, the Electrify America and stuff like that are starting to pop up that I've seen. And we're seeing a lot of, companies building out more, the Flying J and Pilot, they're doing a big expansion of their, rest areas that are EV specific with, covered EV charging areas that have pull-throughs for people with trailers, and all those extra amenities and things like that. There's a lot of that stuff, being like destination kind of things while you're, at these typical rest stop points along the highway. And I think it's going to be really great. I think the charging infrastructure is getting better, and it's happening pretty quickly. Obviously, it's not happening at the snap of a finger like everyone wants, but it is. The money's pouring in. They're breaking ground on this stuff. It's actually happening, and I think it is going to get better here, pretty quickly. And let me see. Strata says, speaking of the Optima and Forte, with all the downsizing of engines, I'm surprised the new K5s are going back to an NA inline 4. Yeah, I think they're kind of just learning that turbocharging doesn't always guarantee better fuel economy, both in the real world and even in the tests. And if they can get away with just doing naturally aspirated stuff, I think it's also going to kind of become more and more popular, potentially because of the cost savings. If you're trying to cut costs on this stuff, having turbos and intercoolers and, all the extra plumbing and stuff that go, a turbo motor is just more expensive, and it's harder to warranty as well because there's, extra parts, which means, more potentials for failure and stuff. Obviously, turbos are inherently fine. Look at every big rig on the road is, turbo diesel, and they do millions of miles, and all that. So there's nothing wrong with a turbo. It's just that, you have more things that could fail, and they're more expensive. So I think, if they can get away with NA motors and, have enough power to make people still happy, you're going to see a lot of that. And I think that's, again, just trying to squeeze every penny they can of profit. That's the way to do it. It's another way of just doing that. Luke says, I saw 3 Fisker Oceans today between West Virginia and Philadelphia. Man, I don't know. I know they're basically giving them away at this point, but still, I don't know who is going for those, but I would like to have a coffee with them and and hear the rationale for that one, because I can't think of a single justification for a Fisker Ocean, especially with the way the company is going and the way that car is going. Braver people than myself. Crazy. And the Good Stick says, I watched Tomorrow Never Dies, and the BMW 750i that Bond drove had a voice assistant, and the car could be controlled by a phone. Now a lot of cars have that now. The movie came out in 1997. Yeah, the James Bond movies have always been really good about predicting future stuff, even like Casino Royale. That came out in 2006, but 2006 was still 2 years before anyone had seen an iPhone. And they had navigation on his Sony Ericsson little phone, and he, pulled it up and was navigating with his phone to this hotel, whenever he's in the Bahamas there. And even when the iPhone came out, I don't believe you could actually navigate with the Apple Maps feature until a couple years later. So, that was something that was definitely coming and did, end up coming. And, we saw it first in the James Bond movie. I love the Bond movies, so it's always fun, but there's been a lot of that kind of stuff that either was one of those things where it's they saw it in the movies, so they wanted it to become a reality, but a lot of the stuff just you saw the writing on the wall, this is the way things are going, and they incorporated that stuff in those movies to give it a futuristic feel, and it's so cool. I gotta rewatch a lot. I want to rewatch all of the James Bond movies, but the Tomorrow Never Dies, I haven't seen that in a long time. That's one I need to go back and watch again soon. But thanks for that comment. That's fun. And you see, Daniel says, I usually don't like government interference, but we need a law dealing with ICE cars that block chargers. I booked a hotel based on it having a charger, only to find a beat up 2002 Eclipse by the stall. Yeah, I know some places will tow, but it's just the whole thing, and that also makes it super long, because then you're sitting there waiting an hour for a tow truck to show up and stuff. But that's going to be, this is why having an abundance of chargers, another reason why it's going to be important, is because I could go on a rant about this all night, so I won't get super into it, but it's just even whenever I was complaining about, plug-in hybrids from these new Mercedes plug-in hybrids having DC fast charging, it's 50 kilowatts. And it's if you have a gas engine backup, there's the whole reason why you bought a plug-in hybrid, so you didn't have to public charge it. And it's just it's the same thing with, you just, especially in America, you can't count on people to be courteous. And so, you're going to have icing is going to happen, as often as it is currently. It's just going to be more and more of a thing as this cultural divide gets bigger and bigger, I'm sure. But, and you're going to have even All Car News, the Instagram page that does a good job of keeping up on car news there. Even they were complaining about, Bolt's hogging these 350 kilowatt fast chargers whenever there's, like 4 chargers around, and usually there's like a slower one that's like 150 or something. And instead of taking that one that's free, they take the fast charging one instead. And people are like accusing him of gatekeeping for complaining about that. And it's like, it's just like you would hope that it would be one of those like we're all in this together kind of thing. Like let's make it a good experience for everybody and like be considerate and leave the charger at 80% or whatever instead of having to sit there to get to 100% and having that last 20% take you an extra hour or whatever. Like there's just a lot of common sense stuff. And I mean, not everyone's a car person, but like I really wish there was more education around like charging etiquette and just I mean, maybe people don't realize that they just straight up don't care that, like, for example, like that hotel thing. Like I actually had the same thing last year where I booked a hotel we went out to the Columbus Zoo, which I was able to get to Columbus all the way on the single charge on the Mach-E. When I got to the hotel, we were like really low. And I mean, I knew there was another fast charger nearby. So if I needed to limp over there, I could have, but there was one functioning charger. There was 3 of them, but 2 of them were broken and they were old. And obviously the hotel didn't give a crap that much, but they advertised like, we have an EV charging station. And it was like, okay, well, 1, I just have to hope that there's no one else that's legitimately using it. But then 2, I got to hope that there's no one icing out that spot. Thankfully, the spot wasn't like prime real estate. So, no one was sitting there, but I just got lucky that it worked for me. But people don't realize like that's the difference between like my night turning into a headache or it being totally seamless and perfect the way it should be. And a lot of people don't realize like, if you're on a road trip, like what if you have a baby in the car, you need to get home, you have an emergency or something like, people just need to put themselves in other people's shoes and realize that, hey, maybe like my situation isn't the most important one, and it's just like, again, that's a lot to ask of modern society to think about other people, but it's just sad that, I think that's gonna be one of the biggest problems. And you're going to see this buckle up this year as these Tesla chargers get opened up to other non-Tesla EVs. It's going to just get even worse, I think, with, Tesla owners who are used to, I mean, not like all Tesla owners are the same, but they all have like I feel like there's a little bit more camaraderie in the Tesla community than there is just among other EV brands and EV, cars out there. So I feel like, once you start having people that aren't in the Tesla group hogging these charging stations and having no clue what they're doing, and again, sitting there and parking for 5 hours while they go in and shop at the mall and crap like that. I mean, it's just, it's going to be rough. This is why I think they just need to litter everywhere with chargers so that, the worst case scenario, you just go limp down the road to the next one and, just hopefully avoid all the conflict. But I think there's going to be a lot of charging station brawls I envision in the future, because it's just, it sucks when that happens. Anyway, sorry for the tangent there, but B. Mitchell says, like Chicago, vote early, vote often. So I'm not sure if that's talking about the charging thing or what. But Brianna says, is Burger King still any good? I actually like Burger King. I don't know. I know they're not super common most places these days, but I like Burger King, and since they're not super common, every time I get a chance to have Burger King, if I'm on the road or something, it's a nice switch from the usual fast food. So I enjoy it myself, but I'm probably in the minority there. Zachary is excited about AVA coming back. Yeah, hopefully we will see. Not guaranteed yet, but we're working on hopefully doing a new event here this fall. So we'll see. Zachary also says, anywho, thanks for another great live stream, Matt. Thank you for watching and all of you for tuning in. I'll wrap up the last few questions here and we'll go. But Jordan, thank you so much for their super chat. He says, BYD coming to the US, interchangeable car battery stations in the future. BYD, we will see. It seems like there's a lot of lawmakers and stuff that want to stop them from even coming here. And then as far as interchangeable car batteries stations, I don't think that's going to be necessary. I mean, with current tech, if it was easy to swap, it wouldn't be a terrible idea. But I think batteries are going to evolve so fast, it's going to be a pointless pursuit to have the swappability that easily, add a station there, because it's going to get, I mean, we're already seeing it. I mean, Toyota's saying 2026, I think, for their 600-mile EVs, hopefully. I think the range thing's going to really dissolve pretty quickly once we start having 600-mile ranges. People are going to have very little anxiety at that point, I think, especially, again, if they charge as fast as like a regular EV does currently, or even better. So, and then once you get the solid state in the 2030s, then you're talking 5-minute recharge times and all the range you could want and stuff. I really feel like it's not going to be an issue to the point of the trouble that it would be, have to go through to have interchangeable car batteries. And honestly, I haven't even heard about anyone really pursuing that recently. I'm hearing more about the wireless charging stuff being more and more popular as far as, having them either on roadways, or if you want to save some money, even have them in like, intersections where cars are frequently stopped to get a little bit of a top off there or something like that, various things like that. There's a lot of work I've been seeing recently about wireless charging that could make a lot of sense if, again, the money is there to support it. But I think those are, what you can see. But I don't think interchangeable batteries have a future, honestly. Let me see. Luke also says, thanks for another great live stream. These are bigger than, thanks for another great live river. These are bigger than streams. I appreciate that, Luke. Let me see. Goth Rocker says, is it true you're selling the Bullet? Is it official? It's not official publicly as far as like I haven't made an announcement or anything yet. But I guess I will, say stay tuned most likely for a video this week, given the lowdown on the Bullet situation. Yes, could be potentially a pretty, hopefully it'll video be done this week. We'll see. Or maybe by this next weekend, and maybe I'm hoping we'll see, but if everything works according to the plan and the timeline and stuff, I'm hoping to have a video posted potentially this coming Saturday, and then have the live stream here this next Sunday to discuss a little bit more there. But Goth Rocker also says turbos are not always fuel efficient like people think. They really are not. Yeah, especially if you get into boost, they can definitely get thirsty. And Truck and Car Guy says, talking from experience, the big rigs need the turbo to make any decent power. Okay, well, that's good. Thanks for the insight there on that. And Goth Rocker said he saw 6 Fisker Oceans from PA to New York. I really would love to interview these people. I can't wrap my head around it. Brianna says you should purchase a BMW i8 for the channel. i8s are cool, but for me, anything I'm buying is going to need a back seat to take my daughter in. So that's one of the reasons I love a Miata, but just I couldn't justify it. Goth Rocker says, Americans are never considerate. I wish we made it hard for people to get driver's licenses. We make it way too easy. I agree. I was talking to Beth about this either yesterday or today. I'm like, man, like I really wish that licensing was harder to get, because you see so many bad drivers. Like, and it's also like, I just wish that they like retested people every 10 years. Like maybe not the written thing, but at least just like the going around the block with a driving instructor. Like I wish when you renewed your license, maybe not every time, but every other time or something, just have them go around the block again. Be like, does this person suck? Is this person actually a nightmare on the road? And just reevaluate every 10 years, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's too much to some people, but I feel like that's reasonable, and I think that would really weed out a lot of, people who shouldn't be behind the wheel, honestly. But I agree. And that would also lower interest or insurance rates if you have less accidents, because you have less of the crazy people out there and stuff. And Jordan, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, wireless car charging? If so, pay homage to Nikola Tesla's work before his death. Yeah, that dude was brilliant. The stuff that guy was working on, so many genius things, makes me wonder, where he got this inspiration from. Let me see. Strata says, what was the last racing video game you've played? Probably Forza Horizon 2 was the last one I played. I haven't played. Actually, well, I guess that's wrong. I played Mario Kart. We have Mario Kart for the Switch, and I play that with my daughter, and that is the most racing I've been doing in the past couple of years as far as video games goes. I'd love to play more. They seem like there's a lot of great ones, just no time. And let me see. Six Lick says the Burger King Whopper is the closest thing to the Krabby Patty. Yeah, I think they're great. Trent Car Guy says I also agree they should toughen up the driving standards. Maybe it would help with the ridiculous insurance rates. Yep, we're on the same page. Goth Rocker says I like how in the new Camry the battery is under the rear seat. It'll be easy to change out. Yeah, it's a good placement, and hopefully, and that's not something you really need to change too often either. So it should be good. And Goth Rocker says also once people are 60 years old, they should be retested every 5 years to see if they can drive. I agree. Burana says DMV might be afraid to get behind the wheel of strangers. Yeah, but I mean, that's their job. That's what they do with the testing, for every new person getting a license. So, and that would, again, weed out people if they're terrifying, then just or even put them in like a driver's ed kind of car with a brake pedal on the other side. So if you're nervous about them being in their own car, put them in that car, and if they fail, then you just slam the brakes and tell them to walk home. But Brian says, did you discuss the difference between the Camry and Accord? I came late to the chat. I did discuss that earlier, so you can go back. That was fairly early in the chat if you have some free time to go back and watch that. Yeah, I'd say Accord's still a little more plush in my opinion, but I haven't driven them on I haven't driven on the same place, different roads and different environments and stuff. So once I get a Camry back home here to spend a week with, I'll have a little bit more to discuss as far as direct comparison between the two. But I think Camry seems to be the better value these days. But I think Accord could potentially be slightly more luxurious and plush still. But let me see. Luke says people can pass a test to impress somebody. Doesn't mean they'll stay good. True, but at least if they have the capacity to drive well, even if they just try, I think a lot of people genuinely, if they tried, still couldn't drive well. So I think those are the people, at least, weed out the low hanging fruit, and then we can work on the others, down the road. But it'd be great to just at least, get the really bad ones off the road and go from there. But Six Lick says, have a good night, Matt, and everyone. Thanks for the stream. Absolutely. Thank you all so much for joining in. Hope you all have a great week. Stay tuned for some more good videos this week, and potentially a very, very big video here towards the end of this week or into the weekend there. And we will see how timing works out with all that. But might have a lot to talk about in next week's live stream. So stay tuned for that next Sunday. I think, it seems like the poll has conclusively decided that Sundays are it. So we will stick to that. Thank you all so much once again for joining in here. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care. Have a great week once again.